Kia ora everyone and welcome back to Civilization 5. Today I'm going to be covering ideology, so I suggest you sit back, grab a cup of your favourite coffee, and let's delve into what is probably one of the most important features of late game Civ 5 in the Brave New World expansion. Ideology has profound impacts on the late game. It is basically this culture tree on steroids for the late game. And so this video I'm going to take you through two key things. The first is adopting an ideology, and the second is some general tips and some slightly more specific ones on choosing the right ideology for you. I won't delve into all of the technical detail of each ideology, but if you'd like to see me break down each one, I'm happy to do that in a separate video. But this one should cover off everything you need, aside from some really advanced and niche strategies. So, let's talk adopting ideology. I've loaded up sort of a test game here, starting in the modern era, just so that I had access to basically everything that I needed. So if you're wondering why I only have 7 culture per turn and it's 1890, that's why. Anyway, so there are basically two ways to adopt an ideology, and they both rely on certain technologies. The first and the fastest way is once you reach the industrial area, you should rush industrialization, the key tech for the era perhaps. This enables you to build a factory and also reveals coal on the map. When you build 3 factories, 1 per city across 3 cities, you'll be prompted to adopt an ideology. So to do that, obviously you need coal, which you can get either from having within your borders and improving the tile, perhaps an allied city-state has it, or you can trade for it if someone else has beat you to it, but hopefully they haven't, and I'll get to that in a second. The second way to be prompted to adopt an ideology is to simply reach the modern era. So you could also rush the modern era if you were going a different strategy. Maybe you're getting all the seafaring techs along the top here, and refrigeration seems like a logical next step. Jeepers! And something you can get faster than industrialization, then you can also rush to the modern era. That's the 2 ways to sort of adopt an ideology, but I will just speak a little bit further on that, because choosing an ideology can kind of be a bit like a space race, and that's because of free tenets. So the first 2 ideopters of each ideology receive free tenets. So it is a good idea to rush toward an ideology if you can, and if you're not sort of going along a specific route or a specific strategy. But also, don't let that sway you, because there may be an ideology that is perfect for you, and you should choose it regardless of any free bonuses that another choice might still be offering. So, let me have a look. Once I've met one of those 2 preconditions for adopting an ideology, it now comes time to turn to the second and more substantial part of this video, choosing the right one. Because as I said at the start, these things are incredibly powerful. And when you're prompted down the bottom here to choose an ideology, it actually won't let you end your turn without it very easily. You can see that there are 3: autocracy, freedom, and order. And within each of these, they have their own sort of cultural policy tree, what we call ideological tenets. There are 3 tiers within each tree: level 1, level 2, and finally, of course, level 3. Within each tier, there are limits to how many things you can unlock, and you're going to see that in a minute, but basically, out of the level 3 tenets, you can only ever have the best example, out of the level 2 tenets, you can only ever have 4 out of 6 of them. This is where it's most impactful, I think, for most players. So do choose carefully. But you might be thinking, well, what are my choices about? I need to pick an ideology first. And you're right, you do. And in general, here are my tips for choosing the right ideology for you. You can see the game gives you little tooltips on which one might be best for which victory type, and these tooltips are actually really good. So the autocracy is generally, undeniably the best ideology for aggressive, militaristic empires. If you're going for a domination victory, you should pick autocracy. If you're pursuing a science victory, I really recommend that you don't choose autocracy, because the others have better offerings. Next up, we have freedom. Freedom is generally best for relatively small and peaceful empires. A number of these benefits tend to favour the performance of specialists. For example, here, universal suffrage. Specialists in cities provide half the amount of unhappiness. These freedom tenets are also pretty good for great people bonuses and generally defensive civilizations. That's why a freedom tends to not be the choice for aggressive empires. And I would really recommend that you don't choose freedom if you're going for a domination victory. Finally, we have order. Now, order is sometimes confused with autocracy because they seem and kind of feel a little bit similar, but let me let you in on the secret difference. Order is best for expansionist empires, but not necessarily aggressive ones. Its tenets primarily benefit per city basis, I guess is the best way to put it. So, but also just general expansion. Now, that can be through allowing you to maintain a large army, or aggressively and sort of expanding in that dominatory stance. But it also just favors large empires. Let's have a look through and find some examples here. You can see new cities start with an extra 3 pop at level 2. You can see party leadership, again at level 2, +1 of every resource except for faith per city. Obviously, that favors larger empires. The bigger you are, the better you're going to do. Patriotic war, you get attack bonus for fighting within friendly territory. Again, the more friendly territory there is, the better it's going to be. But you can also see that that's not necessarily an aggressive policy, right? And that's where this ideology differs from autocracy. It favors large empires, but not necessarily aggressive ones. And that allows you to grab a lot of unclaimed land in the late game and allow your civilization to really stand the test of time. It's a relatively balanced one, and because I've started this game late in the piece, I literally started it in the modern era, order seems like a good pick for me because there's lots of land going, and so, I could choose order and go through and quickly grab all of this land. So there's one tip for you. For the purpose of this video, though, because this save file doesn't actually matter, I'm just going to pick the first one, autocracy. Right, now, give me a minute to gather some culture and I'll show you how this tree plays out in practice. Okay, so a little bit of time has passed in-game. It's sort of turned to crap a bit down here, but don't worry, there's a plan. But anyway, look, I've accumulated some culture and you can see it's prompting me to adopt a policy. So you click adopt policy, it brings up your social policies, but you can also swap to ideological tenets up the top here, or to ideology. You can see Babylonian autocracy is mine, right? And so I've unlocked some tenets in here, and you can see broadly the way it works is that you need to complete the base prerequisites, so in this case 2 level 1 tenets, follow these lines to get a level 2. You need to complete 3 level 1s in order to get 2 level 2s, in order to get 1 level 3. You can see you just follow the lines. That's how the tree works, right? So I've sort of gone through and my strategy here was I was quite low on happiness, so I chose the level 1 tenets that gave me additional happiness for military buildings. But also I wanted to have the ability to fall back on some gold reserves and quickly mobilize an army if I needed it. So I went with mobilization, which reduces the cost of purchasing units with gold. I followed that up in tier 2 by reducing unit maintenance by 33% as well, so I can afford to keep that army. And also military units start with an extra 15 experience, so I'm getting a slightly more trained army. I can also produce them faster with production. Finally, I get up to level 3. You can see there are 3 tenets. These ones are generally the best, but this is how a tenant selection works anyway. Once you get a certain amount of culture and you adopt a prerequisite, you can see I don't have to do a level 3. I could do another level 1 if there was something in particular I wanted, right? And this is what I mean by there's no clear-cut way. In general, autocracy favors happiness production and militaristic tendencies, so they tend to be policies around those, but also there's a lot of divergence here, right? For example, plus 250 tourism with all known civs when a great writer is born. That would be great for me, considering I've just focused down culture for majority of this game. But also, wounded military units inflict 25% more damage. Now, if I want to go all in on my quickly mobilize a cheap and effective army, that's going to be the way to do it. Also, if I was particularly struggling with enemy espionage, well, then this would be a great one, right? So you can see they're really case dependent. So I would encourage you to not ignore ideologies. It can be easy to in the later game, if you're not playing a particularly cultural focused game, to just sort of be like, yeah, whatever, quickly pick one. But really focus on these, because these can make or break you. And because ideologies are global things, every civ will adopt one. Eventually there'll be some diplomatic considerations here too. So you can see at the moment public opinion is fine, right? My content level is at 0. I'm not generating any unhappiness. That's because in general other civs are autocrats as well. If they weren't though, if there was a lot of divergence, and those civs that had a different ideology to you, let's say they're freedom civs, if they overpower you in any way, if they have, say, a lot of tourism and you can't fight that back with your culture, they will be more influential over you. So there are lots of additional sort of upsides and downsides to ideologies. You can change your ideology at any time when you're not content, particularly when it's really bad, if public opinion is really bad. But it can be quite tough because you lose all of your bonuses and get even more unhappiness. So I would really only do that in the most dire of cases. By and large, I would choose one that's right for you. And in general, if you're in the least favorable ideology, if you're maybe an outlier, or if you're particularly susceptible to ideological influence from other civs through their culture or what have you, then choose the happiness. Choose the happiness ones. They're just general good go-tos. If you're struggling for happiness, if you're expanding out wide, if you're getting a whole load of, shall we say, newly acquired cities, then that might be the way to go. But that sort of sums up my guide to adopting an ideology and choosing the right ideology for you. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please do leave a comment with some feedback down below, or maybe smash the like button for that incredible YouTube algorithm. And otherwise, I will see you next time.